Spacewar was a Pentagon-funded video game that predated the famous granddaddy of them all, Pong. Spacewar was the brainchild of 6 graduate students at MIT in the early 1960s and is considered by many to be the first true video game. Spacewar was the first shoot-'em-up multiplayer video game. What the Pentagon would rather the public not know is that it paid for the game's entire development. By the 1950s, the Pentagon knew that technological dominance would lead to modern military dominance. The Soviet Union's launching of Sputnik in 1957 was a massive shock for America's military and political establishments. The feeling was that the US was lagging behind the USSR. Within a year of Sputnik's launch, President Dwight Eisenhower established the Advanced Research Project Agency, the precursor to DARPA, which would later develop what we now know as the Internet. Military money flowed freely into nearly anything related to computer technology. This Pentagon largesse included funding for the electrical engineering labs at MIT. In 1961, MIT's lab acquired a microcomputer, the Program Data Processor 1, or PDP-1. It cost a princely $100,000, the equivalent of roughly $850,000 in today's money. A student study group was formed called, quote, the Hingham Institute Study Group on Space Warfare. This motley group of nerdy pro hackers at MIT would create the first video game. The students were inspired by the space opera books of E. Doc Smith and used the PDP-1 to develop a space simulation. One student coded a simple rocket flying program that involved steering ships around a collapsed star, while another programmed a replica of the night sky into the simulation. 2 players could use switches and knobs to maneuver spaceships through a gravity field of a star while firing missiles at each other. The MIT crew never imagined anyone would pay for interactive entertainment like Spacewar. Back in 1962, computers were uncommon, and household computers were unheard of. The team gave away the code to anyone who asked. Within a year, Digital Entertainment Corporation, which was PDP-1's manufacturer, was including the game with every PDP-1 it shipped. The game went viral. It became so popular on college campuses that Stanford University was forced to ban it during business hours. One of those playing Spacewar was a student at the University of Utah named Nolan Bushnell. Bushnell went on to found Atari, the first commercially successful video game company that brought the technology into millions of homes. Spacewar still exists today in many forms. There are countless knockoffs available on computers, tablets, and mobile platforms. But the original, played on a PDP-1, is still considered the best. Atari released its Battlezone arcade game in 1981, and it was an instant success. The game, with eerie green wireframe graphics, put the player at the controls of a tank wandering the wilderness of a futuristic-looking battlefield, shooting down enemy tanks, UFOs, and missiles. The game's immense success garnered the attention of military brass. The United States Army was interested in finding ways to train new recruits in battle scenarios at a fraction of the cost. An adapted video game of Battlezone would be perfect as a training simulator for the Army's latest infantry fighting vehicle, the M2 Bradley. The Bradley trainer was born. The game's development was shrouded in secrecy at the time, and was the brainchild of a think tank of retired U.S. Army officers. The goal was for Atari to develop a prototype, with the think tank then pitching it to the U.S. Army. The programmer of the original Battlezone game, Ed Rotberg, a staunch pacifist, had to be convinced to work on the new project. Rotberg eventually relented for the commercial good of Atari, while others involved in the project believed that the development of the new prototype was a patriotic endeavor. But there were tensions between Atari developers regarding the secret project. The Atari team was under pressure from the start. The project needed to be delivered within 10 months, and the plan was for the simulator to be showcased at a military conference by the think tank in 1981. The controls were a major challenge. In Battlezone, players used twin sticks as an interface, while the Bradley trainer used an adapted gunnery yoke that allowed the user to aim across both an X and Y axis. This would make training for the M2 Bradley more realistic. However, it's believed only 2 prototypes were ever even produced. The project was cancelled for reasons unknown, and no M2 Bradley crewmen ever trained on the system. In 1993, a small developer from Texas called id Software released Doom. The game pioneered the first-person shooter genre that continues to dominate the industry. This time, it was the Marine Corps that took an interest in how a video game could offer cost-effective simulated training. However, different from other military agencies, the United States Marine Corps has a small budget and is notoriously frugal. The Marine Corps budget typically accounts for only about 4% of the Defense Department's total. In fact, in 1995, the Marine Corps had a budgetary deficit and needed a cheaper way to train recruits. Thus, it mandated its Modeling and Simulation Management Office with finding a commercial product that could be modified for Marine training needs. Lieutenant Scott Barnett and Sergeant Dan Snyder were assigned to play PC games on the market. The two men spent hours playing every video game available that might meet the needs of the Marine Corps. They eventually selected Doom 2. In that game, the player controls a Marine defending Mars from the ferocious fiends of hell. It's all about firepower, which was perfect given that every Marine is a trained rifleman. Barnett and Snyder needed a quick, twitchy game to encourage Marines to think fast in the face of danger. Doom 2 had that. It was also one of the few games that supported networked multiplayer functionality and allowed for easy modification. Barnett decided to modify the game from its sci-fi Mars terrain to a small desert village. The original game's demon enemies became human adversaries who resembled Nazis. Marine Doom never became an official training tool, but Marines were still encouraged to play it, and it was sanctioned to be installed on government PCs. In 1997, then Commander of the Marine Corps, General Charles C. Krulak, issued a directive supporting the use of PC games for strategic military purposes. Shockingly, the entire cost of the development of Marine Doom was just $50, including the salary of the Marines involved. The Marine Corps leadership loved the game. The simulation forced players to think on their feet, practice teamwork, and make decisions in stressful situations. Not only that, but Marines loved playing it. Newer, better games came along, but Marine Doom's legacy prevails. The Doom suite of games remains scary, fast-paced, and extremely violent. The game called America's Army is arguably the highest profile and most controversial military video game to date. It was first released in 2002, and because it was intended as a recruiting tool, it was available for free download or on disc at Army recruitment offices. America's Army was developed as an online multiplayer first-person shooter game that had players assuming the role of different infantry-related jobs in the Army. It was entirely financed and developed by the U.S. Army. The game was also designed to reinforce Army values and training. For example, players have to complete a virtual boot camp and marksmanship test before going online. Specialized roles like medic or sniper are locked behind further tiers of advanced training. Players love its focus on small unit tactical maneuvers that place them in an elite team deployed behind enemy lines in the fictional country of Zervinia. Players can be deployed on a wide range of realistic missions, ranging from the extraction of a VIP to destroying the enemy's military assets and taking control of strategically important territory. The game has attracted several million players on both PCs and consoles, and has been openly acknowledged by the U.S. Army's Public Relations Office as being a crucial recruitment and marketing tool. The game quickly became controversial for openly targeting teenagers in its marketing. The game was indeed aimed at getting teenagers interested in a career in the Army long before they turned 18. Video game developer Slitherine is well respected in the gaming community for its expansive product range of strategy and war titles. The original Command Model Air Naval Operations game was released by Slitheриne's Matrix Games in 2013. Command Professional Edition, or Command PE, followed in 2015. Command PE offers a physics-based battle space environment simulation tool for military contractors and offers logistics training and analysis for armed forces. According to Ian McNeil, CEO of Slitherine, one of the main reasons military professionals are attracted to Command PE is the sheer quantity of military asset data it offers. In the words of McNeil, quote, "We spent decades researching the data that goes into Command, and the database that's included with the game has every conceivable weapon system, aircraft, ship, and radar from 1945 up until the near future." McNeil continues, "For every country around the world, If you think of something, it's in there. There are probably 100 variants on the F-16 in there. On top of that, each one has dozens of different loadouts for the mission that's been given. It's contended by Slytherin that some military customers are interested in the game just for the unparalleled database, but it also serves other purposes. For example, it can be used for fuel technology and costing exercises, and analytical data is plugged in as the military user sees fit. Another feature of Command PE is that while first-person simulations are often used with joysticks or consoles, the game generally uses a PC, which better mimics how an actual military command center functions. There's a dedicated division within the Slytherin group that was established for the sole purpose of managing classified military contracts. It's from this secretive department that Command PE was born.